Smile.
But I'm not happy.
People
Why are you
staring.
I don't want to do this.
You have to. They'll know
No one
something's
cares
wrong.
about your
Why
life.
is that bad?
Nobody cares. They won't understand.
Nobody
You want to
cares.
go home. You'll hurt their feelings.
This was ridiculous. What are
Why
we even
just
talking about?
like,
Just
just you want to
keep
keep
them
them
happy.
happy.
What if they
They're
think
gonna
you're
be
stupid?
mean.
Just
Just
keep them happy.
Just keep them happy.
Just lie.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.
Hi, welcome to Real Honest, the podcast where I share candid thoughts and feelings about life, love, and relationships, God and church, adulting, the workplace, and everything in between. I am your host. My name is Samantha, and you probably won't always like me, but I will always be honest with you. Quick goals check-in as we are rounding out first quarter. How are you guys feeling? What are you working on? I think the main thing that I have learned is that I have too many goals and I'm trying to do too many things. And I was talking to one of my friends about this morning because she was really struggling with also it's too many goals, and it's like because we're working towards so many things, there's like a start, stop. And so I think the thing that we both are learning is we need to just pick one. So and even we're automatically going to have multiple goals in the area. So I think it's more we need to choose a category. So for the month of April, it's going to be fitness or finance or work, whatever it is. But then that's the thing that you're focusing on, instead of trying to have a list of this is this month's finance goal, this is this month's fitness goal. And I think until you get to a place where you're consistent with the one, and then you can add more as you go once it becomes a second nature part of the routine. But I think just it's a problem with perfectionists. But I think the issue that we're running into is just trying to do way too many things at once. So I think that I really focused on work this first quarter. So second quarter, I'm going to try to focus on fitness and see how that goes. What I'm learning from God right now, I feel is just continuing in this season of giving and receiving feedback. I've had to have, I feel more hard conversations than usual, and maybe God's just giving me content for the podcast, in which case, thanks, I guess. But just I'm noticing at work and in my volunteer role at church and in my group that I lead, there are just so many difficult conversations that need to be had. And I'm just can I have less of these? I'm kind of over it because I don't enjoy them. We had a pastor came and talk to all of the leaders, the online small group leaders at my church earlier this week, to give us a hard conversation class basically. And I really loved it. I thought the content was great. It just was interesting to me because he said that he loves having hard conversations, and I don't. I like the benefit of them, right? I like getting to the other side of something. I like talking things through and seeing each other's perspective and learning something, but the actual act of having the hard conversation has never been what I would describe as fun. But I think as a leader and a manager, it's necessary. And I think that I'm getting these opportunities because my word for 2025 is growth. And I think that an area that I really need to grow is giving people feedback and also soliciting and receiving feedback myself. But this is a lesson that I hope I learn quickly because I'm kind of over the teaching period. So I titled today's episode after one of my favorite Tortured Poet songs because, as you guys know, I love Taylor Swift and I love a double meaning. And when you listen to this song, it means love of my life for the verses and the first two choruses. And then you get to, maybe the bridge too, but you get to the end and you're oh, it's loss of my life, not love of my life, but it's actually both. And before anyone thinks this is going to be super dark and depressing, I actually have not lost anyone close to me to death, so I don't mean loss in that way. I'm using loss here specifically to mean grieving the life that you thought you'd have. I feel I am talking to friends about this more and more often. We're just, as we get into our 30s, it's why didn't anyone tell us about this? I feel I was warned growing up that there were going to be seasons where all my friends would be getting married and how that comes in waves. I do remember when I was in college, that was something people said to me a lot, is typically toward the end of college is your first wave of like friends getting engaged and married, and there's a lot of that for like a few years, and then it kind of dies down, and then there's going to be another wave. That I have definitely found to be true. I don't recall any of those conversations, including like, and if you're not one of those people, you're going to feel super sidelined and left behind and be worrying about comparing yourself a lot. But I don't recall anybody ever warning me about like getting to your 30s and having to sit and reflect on where you thought you would be and having to honestly mourn the fact that that's not where you are. I definitely was one of those kids that was a planner and a list maker. I had a 5-year plan, a 7-year plan, a 10-year plan. And I just wish, my mom did always say life happens to your plans, which I think I understood as a kid, that like you can make plans, but that doesn't mean they'll come true. But I think that was juxtaposed with like my dad's need to always have a plan. That maybe those things didn't make sense in my head because my parents seemed to always make plans and they seemed to always come true or happen. Maybe not like to the letter, like not necessarily the way they planned it, but I think in terms of like they planned to get married, they planned to have kids, they planned moves, and they planned for to pay for all the kids to go to college, like all of that. They made plans and then it happened. So maybe that's why they didn't warn me, because life actually did work out for them in the way. I don't know. That would be an interesting thing to talk to them about. But I've mentioned on here how I'm in a small group in seminary. And the thing that we do in that small group is it's led by a counselor, and we take turns sharing our life story, focusing on any memories of like trauma or pain so that we can process through it in a safe space, because the idea is that everybody in seminary is going to go out and be a ministry leader in some capacity. And even though I have quit seminary and I never wanted to be a pastor anyway, so I was not ever planning to do that, and I also have no plans to work in ministry, I am still considered a ministry leader because I do lead other leaders within a church, and I lead a small group, and the whole purpose of the group is spiritual growth and community. And when I shared my life story, I split it into chapters where I essentially had like chapter 1 was my childhood. My childhood was magical. My sisters and I were best friends. I loved my parents. I mean, aside from I was afraid of my dad growing up. Like I felt like he was very mean and scary. I think that he traveled a lot for business and he was really the stronger disciplinarian. So I do remember, I think there was a lot of like, I would back talk to my mom and then my dad would spank me when he got home from a business trip, and it might be days later, it might be weeks later. So like when you're little, you know, you can't put the behavior with the punishment because they're not happening together, but that resulted in me being like very afraid of him. But outside of that, I would say that my childhood was absolutely magical. I mean, my parents took us on amazing vacations, which were almost always over spring break, and my birthday is over spring break, so that was really cool to get to have some birthdays in fun places. And it just like, we had more toys than we could ever want or dream or hope for. Like my sisters and I were very, very happy. I think we were all generally very good at school. We started out like singing and acting and modeling pretty young, and I loved that. Like I've always loved being on set since I don't know, I was probably 4 the first time I ever had like an acting or modeling job, and I've just loved it forever. I think I described my childhood as like birth through 5th grade, and then chapter 2 was middle school, which the first 2 years were incredibly magical, and I absolutely loved it and had the greatest friends and the greatest teachers and the greatest school. And then 8th grade is like the first dark cloud, where it's like the first time that I experienced depression, and that kind of trickled into chapter 3, which was high school. And so I was also depressed all through 9th grade, but then kind of came out of it, and then high school was a dream, another like perfect magical time, super happy, big dreams, chasing them, started dating, and that when I started dating is like really when I feel like my life started to go downhill. But so then my next chapter was college, which was an absolute nightmare start to finish. And then post-college was like the Disney college program, meeting the married guy that I dated and didn't know was married for 2 years. So that was a whole tragic season. And then like moving to California, moving back to St. Louis, and then like starting to work. And so then I think I put like my mid-20s was the next chapter that was also pretty much a struggle, and then late 20s, and then ended with present day. And what I found really interesting is that while I was, so the way that my seminary has you do this is you're supposed to draw your memories. You're supposed to start with your earliest memory and like grow yourself up over time, like on a poster board, and like draw all of your significant memories. And as I was putting this together, I really kind of look back on my life based on like who I was dating in the season. So I think that's why like my whole childhood kind of like blurs together until I get to like late middle school, early high school, because I'm like, oh, okay, that year I was in love with that guy. It's just awful. But I really focus on the relationships that I've had with men, because those have been like honestly the most traumatic things I've ever experienced, and also have really formed the way that I see the world and the way that I interact with people. And I shared my life story with the church group that I lead before I did in the seminary group. The church group is larger. We meet for a longer amount of time, and I've been leading it for 5 years. Most of the people in it at this point have probably been in it for a year or so, but they definitely know me better than the people in the seminary group. But something I found really interesting is when I finished sharing with my church group, the first question that I got was, wow, you've dated a lot of guys with substance abuse issues. Have you thought about, oh my gosh, what did she say? It was something to the effect of like, how do you reflect on that now? Like, are you able to identify that and like stop being attracted to those guys, or like what's going on? And I at least have like worked through this in therapy before I got the question, so I was prepared for it. But I was like, interesting that you think I have dated a lot of guys with substance abuse issues. There have been 3. Maybe that is a lot, but none of them were significant relationships. I mean, we're talking 4 months at the longest for each of them. So I'm just like, like I've had 2-year relationships. I've had a 5-year relationship. Like those people were not on drugs. But hey, people hear what they hear, and maybe I made a really big deal when I was telling that part of the story. But I found that interesting, and I did explain to the group, like, it's not men on drugs that I'm attracted to. It's people with complicated emotions and people that have really experienced some trauma, because I've experienced some trauma, and people that have experienced a lot of trauma tend to be self-medicating in some way, shape, or form. So that's just something that I like have noticed is a trend in my life. But what I found fascinating was like that seemed to be, I felt like in telling the story, I was focusing on my relationships. And so I do understand how the takeaway was like, there's a common denominator in some of these relationships. But I did the same thing with my seminary group, where I was focusing on my relationships. But the feedback that I got from that group was the way that I had spent like my entire childhood, middle school, high school, college, like I spent like birth through age like 25 dreaming about working in the entertainment industry. Like I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to be a singer or a writer, either writing music or writing scripts, whether it was film or TV. Like I just wanted to get to Hollywood and be on set in any way that I could. And I feel like I just didn't get any help. My parents did put me in acting classes really young. I've taken acting pretty much my whole life. And I was like modeling and stuff, but I was doing like local things. And like I was born in Nebraska and then we moved to St. Louis. Those are just not markets that are like doing movies, like big, cool work, and I remember when I was in college at one point, my dad said to me, like, I don't think I know anyone in the industry you want to go in to help you. And I know that he just wanted to help. Like, I know that he loves me and just wanted to help. And like, to him,
jobs are all about networking and it's about working your network. And he's like, oh, I can't help you with that. But the way that I received it when I was in college was, you need to do something else because I can't help you with that. You need to do something that I can help you with. So like, go study business, do HR, like do what I'm doing because that's safe and that's a plan that you can follow that makes sense. And you're veering off course and trying to do something that doesn't make sense. So I really feel like the reason that I don't work in entertainment today is because I didn't have the support. Like, I didn't have emotional support. I didn't have physical support. And I think I was so caught between, like, if you read a lot of celebrity memoirs, a lot of them will say like you can't have a plan B. Like, if you want to be an actor, acting has to be your one and only plan, or you're going to put all your time and energy into your plan B. And I feel like that's what happened to me, where I think my parents were kind of like, you can go pursue acting whenever, you can always quit your job and move to LA, but you need to have a job and some money to fall back on. And that's why like just college ended up being the thing where like I tried to study film in college, but I ended up at a school that's film program was a complete joke. And it doesn't matter. That's not the point of the podcast. But I'm trying to just give brief background so that you guys understand the whole point of the topic today, which was like the people in the room when I was like telling this story were like, you have like, you're 32. I mean, I'm about to, like, you turn 32 in a few weeks and you have been working toward this dream. Like, you just let go of this dream at like 26, 27. Like, you have spent more of your life pursuing this thing than you have pursuing something else. And like, what even am I pursuing right now? Can't really tell you. But it was really interesting to have people just like cross the room and hug me and just like hold me and be like, I'm so sorry that you lost your dream. I'm sorry that was taken away from you. I'm sorry it's gone. And just, they were pointing out like just the light in my eyes when I would talk about like my acting class as a kid and how much I loved it. And even like when I get auditions today, it's so exciting to me. I love breaking down scripts. I love breaking story. Like, it's interesting and it's fun. And they're just like, to just watch the light go out of your eyes when you talk about like what you do day to day now and how that's just so not where you want to be and is not like fulfilling and life-giving to you. Like, that's really sad. And I think I definitely have worked through it in therapy over the years, but it kind of feels, I really don't want to compare it to a death because I haven't experienced that. And I know that a lot of people have. And so I don't want to pretend like I know what that feels like. But I guess I'll say when I read books or I watch TV and there are characters who lose a loved one, like their loved one dies, they talk about how like you never get over it. Like, you just over time, you learn how to be without that person. But also it just comes in waves where like anything can trigger you and throw you back into, it's like you lost them yesterday, even if it's been 5 years. And that will keep happening for the rest of your life. So a lot of them describe it as like, I lost this person 10 years ago, but like there's a certain smell or sound that will bring me back. And it's like I lost them yesterday. And that is something I feel like is similar that comes up a lot, where sometimes I'll just be watching something or reading something, or I'll just be sitting and thinking, and I'll just get like overwhelmingly sad because like young me was so excited and just like really believed she was going to get there and really believed she was going to be somebody, she was going to do it. And I just like, I'm sad because I disappointed her. I think like that really is the worst part for me. And I have a letter that I wrote, I think when I was in the 8th grade. They made us write letters to our future selves, our graduating high school senior selves. And I still have this letter, and it's awful because when I was in the 8th grade, I was very depressed and I was very angry. And I wrote this letter that was like, I bet you still don't have a boyfriend. I bet you haven't done this and haven't done that. And like high school me, I think she did have a boyfriend, but she hadn't done like pretty much any of the other stuff. And I think the idea of the exercise is to like open the letter 4 years later and be like, wow, look how much I've grown. And you know, there are many other ways in which I've grown that I think like 12, 13-year-old me would be really proud of, but I do think there are very big things that she would be really, really disappointed in. And I don't think that I necessarily need to change them. Like I'm happy with the way that my life is right now. I think that everything happens for a reason. And I think that if I was supposed to get my dream, then I would have. I think that suffering is a part of life. And I think that suffering is our greatest teacher. And we learn the most like when we are processing through pain. So I think that it's just part of my life that I had to have this big dream and then lose it and then process through it. But that doesn't mean that it's not randomly going to hurt and that it's not going to still be sad. And I think also just like part of being a millennial, right, is that our parents' generation did not talk about things. They didn't talk about feelings. They weren't going to therapy. And so there's a lot of shutting things down of like, oh, if you didn't make that happen, you didn't want it bad enough. You didn't work bad enough. Like just, you know, get over it, move on. And so I think also trying to get past that mentality to say, I did want it bad enough. I did work hard enough. It just still didn't happen. And that sucks. So I really just want to put out there for anyone that like thought they would be married by now, thought they would have kids by now, thought they would have a certain amount of money in the bank account, own a house, have a very best friend, have traveled to a certain number of places, you know, whatever it is that you thought you would have done by now and you didn't do. Like, I just want to let you know that it is okay to be sad about it. And it's okay to take time to grieve that because you had a dream and you had a belief, and for whatever reason, it didn't come to fruition, and that's sad. It's painful. It hurts. It sucks. And do not let anyone tell you that you need to just get over it, because you don't. You can continue to be sad about it. I'm not saying like lay down and give up on life and wallow in your sadness forever, but I am saying that like if you're feeling sad because you thought you would fill in the blank by now and you haven't, you know, there are two pieces to that. First of all, your life isn't over. So yeah, you can still do it. There's always time, right? Like there are different ways to have children. There are different jobs there. I mean, you can change your career at any point. Like all of that is still doable. Even if you get the thing 10 years after you thought you would get it, that's still a 10-year period of grieving the fact that you thought you would have it then. So even if you can still pursue it and it's still an option to you, that doesn't take away from the time and energy that you put in trying to get there and then not getting there. It's completely okay and normal to be sad about it. And I think what has really helped me with this is digging into why. So I feel like, you know, I thought I was going to get married when I was 23, and I thought I was going to have my first kid at 25, my second kid at 27. So I was very, very confused when I was 28 and not even had a fiance. But my therapist really pushed me a lot in those years and was like, why is not having a husband a sign of failure? Like, why are you defining success that way? And let's really dig into that. Why do you want a husband? And it turned out that I really wanted a wedding more than I wanted a husband. Like anytime that I was asked why I wanted to get married, I was like, because I want a man to publicly declare to the world that I am the one, that he has chosen me, that we belong together, and he is off the market. Like, I want that. But okay, listen to what I just said. He needs to be someone that I choose too, because there have been some men that have declared that. And I am like, yikes, stop, get away. Shoo, I don't know you, go far, 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 far away. But like, I really wanted to be chosen. And then beyond that, I really, really wanted a wedding. Like I wanted to put on a white dress. I wanted to look for venues and pick flower arrangements and pick dresses for my sisters. And I just envisioned the whole experience of like planning the wedding. I thought it was going to be so exciting. And I wanted to walk down the aisle with everyone that I know and even people that I don't know. I wanted to have the biggest wedding that the world has ever seen. Why? Who knows? But like all of that was like really important to me. And it's just like, okay, how much? So you want to get married. That's different than wanting to be married. And like, if the thing that you really want is to have someone declare to the world that you are theirs, there are other ways to do that than a wedding. If what you really want is children, there are other ways to do that than by getting married. And I'm not saying that marriage is bad. I'm not saying that people shouldn't get married. I'm just saying when I personally was grieving the fact that I thought I would be married and wasn't, and I started to dig really deep into what is it that I actually desire here, I learned that what I was desiring was something different. And like ultimately, my deepest desire is to be chosen back by someone that I choose. And like God does that. My friends do that. You know, it might happen for me romantically someday, but right now it can be fulfilled by God and it can always be fulfilled by God, but right now it can also be fulfilled by my close friends, and they are filling that need so well that I'm not like having that like longing for a romantic partner to choose me back, because I've chosen some friends and they've chosen me, and if you guys would just not ever leave me, that would be great. And then, you know, back on the entertainment industry piece, like what was the actual like craving there for me? It's like, I need to be creative. Like I just love music, and I don't even necessarily need to be making music, but I love listening to music. I love experiencing stories in all mediums. And I also love telling stories, which is part of why I now have a podcast, because I tell you guys stories about my life. You know, I send very long voice notes to my friends because I like telling stories. And so what I have found is like, I need to make sure that I have those outlets in my life. I need to be consuming stories. I need to be telling stories. And it may not look like what it looked like in the past, but it helps me not sit in those moments of sadness. Like usually when I like feel depressive episodes coming on now, usually if I pause and be like, have I listened to music recently? Have I sang recently? Have I experienced a really good story? Like when's the last time I read a book that like made me cry or made me throw the book at the wall or kept me up until 4:00 in the morning because I had to know what happens? Like if I haven't had that experience recently, that's really what I'm chasing. So whoever you are that's listening, you're doing great. It's okay to be sad about the thing. And if you're really struggling to come out of the sadness about the thing, just take some time like journaling or thinking or talking to a therapist or a friend about it, and just really dig into what the ultimate like goal is. Like what's driving that want for you, and is there another way that you can get it? Hard conversation of the week. Okay, so I did not lose my best friend. I was being dramatic about that last week. We're totally fine. Everything is good. My bad. He did call and basically tell me that I'm insane and he adores me, which is fine. It works for me. And just to be clear, before I get some irritating text messages, you guys know I exaggerate. So the words insane and adore were not part of the conversation. That's my interpretation of the conversation. But in terms of actual hard conversations this week, there are many hard conversations that I have attempted to have that didn't really come to fruition. Like I had a couple friends reach out to ask if I'm excited about something that's going on in life soon. And I told them yes and no. And they were like, oh, what do you mean? Because they were expecting me to be like, yeah, I'm so excited. And I said, well, I'm excited for these reasons. I'm not excited for these reasons. And after that, they both just said, oh, or like, yeah, that's hard. And just kind of ended the conversations there. And in both cases, I didn't care enough to push and keep explaining, because they didn't ask really enough or the right questions. And I know that to an extent that's like expecting people to be in my head, but it's more of what I had talked about last week, where I had said, like, I have friends that like I can have those conversations with. And so if I have to work really hard to do it with a specific person, I would rather just go to the person that can have the conversation. So it's more like, there are other friends that I went to that I said, like, you know, I want to be excited about this thing, but I'm not excited because of these reasons. And they've said like, oh, that's totally valid. And they've have asked more like follow-up questions of like, well, have you thought about this and considered this, and tried to like help me shift perspective, where like that's an engaging conversation that's helping me grow. But if you expected me to say, yeah, I'm so excited, and then because I didn't say that, that tripped you up and now you just don't know where to go. And so then I explained to you why parts of me are not excited, and the response is just, oh, that's hard. It's like, okay, that's the end of the conversation. I had some hard conversations with team members at work that I am not good at giving feedback to, and I actually had to get on the phone with one of my friends and be coached through giving feedback to someone. So that's embarrassing, but at least I think it went well, where I typically, like, if somebody screws up at work, I like, and I've already told them like a million times what they need to do, I don't have the energy to tell them again. And I am like, let's move on, let's get this done. But I'm like, clearly that's not working because it's the same mistakes that keep happening. So I'm like, I need to be firmer with this. So I'm working through that, and hopefully that will help me get some better responses. I know I was just talking about, I think it was just last week, that I was like, if I change me, I change we. And I'm like, okay, if I want the people on my team to respond to me differently, I have to start with giving them different feedback. And then there have been a lot of hard conversations this week with various members of my small group. Partially it's because since I have a co-leader now, it's like the two of us had met to come up with like some house rules of like how we want our group to run and what we really want it to be. So we spent some time analyzing like, what is the purpose of this group and what do we want the outcome to be? And then like, who is showing up and helping us cultivate that and who's not? And I don't necessarily mean like physically showing up like on the Zoom, but also, I mean, showing up in a way that like is productive to our vision for the group. And so we've just had to kind of level set with the whole group and like meet with people individually to say like, you know, this is what we're trying to build here. Like, do you want to be a part of this or not? And I feel like that's always, it's always hard because we want to be kind, of course. I always want to lead with kindness, but I also want to build something. And so, you know, if people aren't going to help me build it, then I'm like, all right, move on. Let's not waste either of our time here. But if it's like, you do want to help me build it and you're just questioning how to do that, or you don't really know that you're not helping me build it, then we need to sit down and figure that out. And so that has been kind of stressful, to just all of the different conversations that we have had to have. But again, like, it feels really good coming on to the other side of it. Like going into the conversations always stresses me out, and then being in the middle of them always stresses me out. But if we get to the other side with like a mutual understanding, then I'm always like, I'm really glad that we did that. It's been a while since I have watched something really life-changing. The Flight Attendant is the main one that comes to mind. Like, that show was really life-changing for me. Like, I feel like I just learned so much. But I already talked about that weeks ago. I don't have anything recent. You guys, like, what are you guys watching that's really good? I mean, something with like amazing character development, amazing acting, amazing writing. Like, what are you guys watching right now? Send me an email at realhonestpod@gmail.com and let me know.
That's all I have for you today. Short and sweet. Thank you so much for listening. Leave me a review if you feel like it. New episodes every Wednesday at 6 a.m. Central. Bye.
I'm not here to sugarcoat, life's already a bumpy road. Too much shelter causes pain, let's just be real honest. Things are gonna knock you down, avoidance will not help you out. Let's talk it through, here me and you, let's keep it real honest.